So anyway, here we are, YouTube live show with Hitomi. And we announced it for 6 o'clock on Tuesday, and here we are. It's already 6:48, so we're 48 minutes behind. But we did have a little bit of technical difficulty with internet connection and such. There's weather increments here, and John on his end, we're trying to hook up things. I mean, this is Bali to Canada, so you can imagine, you know, this things goes on. But anyway, we're on, John. Welcome, John Haines. This is the much anticipated live show. I think it's so cool that we could talk like this and that others could join us and hear our conversation. So welcome. So what's going on there in Bali these days? Is it warm?
Yeah, it's actually it's still quite cool because it's winter time in Australia, of course. So that feeds up here. We're quite close to Australia. Yeah. And so like last night, about 2 o'clock, it was like, where's the down comforter?
Okay, tell me, when you request the down comforter, what temperature is it really?
I haven't a clue. Because they'll give it to you in centigrade and you don't know what it is, you know. But.
It's probably like in the 60s. That's probably what it is.
Yeah, maybe 70s, maybe 70s.
70s. Oh my God,
Yeah.
That's really bad. This is from a guy who used to live in Colorado, for heaven's sakes.
Yes, well, that's one thing that happens to you when you live in the tropics is that after a time you quit having these bizarre sweats and this kind of thing, and your body just adjusts to it.
Yeah.
And then when you go where it is cold, it is so cold you just die. You think, I want to go home.
Well, I know that the couple times that I've seen you over back in North America, you were asking for down vests and extra shirts and layers, and it was really quite a lovely day. So I do remember that you've adjusted very much to that warm weather. So how many years have you been in Bali then?
Well, you know, I knew you were going to ask that question, and I honestly don't remember because I came over to Bali 2 or 3 times just on a holiday after finishing work with in China, because by that time I had started in doing product development in Guangdong province, and then I said I don't want to fly back and forth to San Francisco or in Colorado, whatever, all this time, that 18-hour flight. And that's when I just said, listen, I'm going to move to Bali. And Ali found a little bungalow, little tiny Balinese house, and I rented that. And then one thing and another, and we eventually ended up, you know, building a house, a home.
Yeah.
So
no,
it's at least 12 years, maybe 15 years that I've been here now, somewhere in that range anyway.
It's just been really good. And so you can hardly remember how many years you've been living in this wonderful, wonderful place that you're at right now. But okay, so let's just sort of go back to the beginning though, because I think, you know, there's a lot of people that's curious about your career in floristry and how did you start? And we know that you're in Bali now, but how did you begin your floristry career?
I became really enchanted with it, and when I was in high school with a local flower shop, and it was an interesting operation because it was the very, very traditional retail greenhouse, small greenhouse range, and they did bedding plants and some benches of stuff, and had the bougainvillea plant in the one end and the stephanotis in the other end, and a bulb cellar which you walk by it, and you know the came right up at you, and I just became enchanted with it. And so I said, when I went to university, I went to Colorado State University, which is the ag school in Colorado. I said, I'm going to take horticulture, study horticulture, and learned how to grow apple trees and how to trim greens on the golf course and all of that along the line, which that's all gone memories now. But it was a good floriculture course, but it was not much design. And there was one flower shop there in Fort Collins, Colorado. And it was couple that had had a nursery and then started a flower shop. And she was probably early on a self-taught creative person. She's very talented. And it was a small business, and so there was a lot of chat time and stuff. And I will say this, she said, okay, make this arrangement. And I was working after school. I'd go hop on my bike and run over to their flower shop and work after school. And she said, make this arrangement, but know what you're doing before you start. Who is it for? What is it? Da, da, da. And it was really, really good training, and it's lasted the rest of my life, because before, and I think it's a good lesson for any designer, to just don't jump in, know what you're doing, why you're doing it, for whom you're doing it, and have a plan. And that's just good training. And
it's really the purpose that we're in the business, right? To serve those points.
Right. And the only thing that I failed at was that he was a ex-proofreader in a newspaper, and he didn't teach me how to spell.
Oh, well.
So we're still living with that deformity.
But I know that you've talked about them countless times, you know, in the years that I've known you, and how much of a foundation that particular shop and the training there has given you, and that a lot of what they did are still things that you would do today. So interesting that they were, in fact, you know, had a greenhouse, and they did the whole thing, because I think today's generation of florists that's coming in are almost doing the same sort of thing. They want to grow, they want to have a little bit more control of what flowers that they're going to use, what's available to them. I think it's sort of going through another cycle, don't you think?
Oh, definitely. I mean, and I think the consumer sees that too, because I flash back on that little operation they had, and they only had really 3 greenhouses. It wasn't a large operation. Because they had been a nursery back behind. They had places where they grew summer flowers in beds, that they had nursery beds. But he had beds full of daisies and aramurus and all kinds of stuff in summertime. So you got you could just walk out there and like going through a cutting garden and cut your flowers that you wanted to use.
You know, that's funny, because that's really today's younger florist dream. I mean, who would have thought that they were growing aramurus then? Because a lot of people sort of in the last 20, 30 years in business, when aramurus came in, it was like, whoa, like what an awesome flower. But here they were so many years ago growing aramurus in their garden and using them as cut flowers. So again, this whole cyclical thing is really happening again. It's really cool.
And you know, his knowledge of plant materials and stuff. To this day, I still, some smart grower is going to start growing Clematis manchurii.
Yeah.
Which is a bush clematis.
Really? It's a bush.
It's a bush. It's not a climber.
Oh my God.
And the manchurii, that variety, and weddings, summer, like July and August weddings, when it was in bloom, there was just this abundance of it in the bouquets and the altar work and all that.
So when you then went into your own retail business, and that was in Colorado, right?
Yeah, well, Judy and I had gotten married, and we decided that enough of that. They said, "Do you want to buy into this business?" And we said, "Nah." I didn't feel competent to run a business at that time, and it was also that one was quite structured. You know, there was a way to do everything. Every order was written on a piece of scrap paper and then put onto an invoice, so you didn't ruin an invoice. You know, we were penny wise there. And I moved to Boulder. You know, we did, and worked for shops there. And then we decided to. It was time to buy a business and get in business for ourselves, and went in partnership and we found the shop in Longmont, Robbins, which had been an old family business, and it was up for sale. And we bought Robbins, and that was the basis of our really experience. I had a partner, eventually bought Kent out, and continued to operate that. And
how many years was that?
Got probably close to 20 years.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It was a thriving shop. I mean, you guys did wonderful business. Well,
it was a great business. It was right next door to a mortuary, and it had been established for, I don't know, 75 years or something. It was founded by a guy that moved to Loveland and started a business he moved from Ohio or someplace. And then as the kids matured, he opened up shops. There was one up in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and then they opened this one in Longmont. So it was a chain. And Robbins is no longer in business, but the original one in Loveland is still in business under a different name.
Oh, but, wow.
But it was just good training.
Yeah.
You know, learned how to run our business, learned what customer service was really like.
That's what it's all about. Yeah,
it is totally.
So, Colin, are there any questions at all from up there?
We just have a couple of people joining us and saying there's Shaw Dynasty 76 saying hello from beautiful Hawaii, and Greg Lum says hi, John and Hitomi.
Oh, okay. Hello.
Thank you. Hello.
So no questions?
Not yet.
So I'll just keep asking my questions then. Okay.
Please ask some questions though.
Yeah, because that makes it fun, right? If there's audience participation. But meanwhile, let me ask you this one. So what other areas of the floral industry were you involved in other than the retail?
Formed a friendship and a business relationship early on. Even when I was still working in a shop in Boulder with Mark Addison, who founded Design Master. And actually, Mark was the first sponsor that sent me out to do a show someplace. And of course, and that was an interesting thing. That was in the heyday of wholesale house shows. Every city of any size had an allied, and they did, a spring show, a summer show, or a fall show, or a Christmas show. There were shows every weekend, and Mark would travel, and he would just hop across the country every spring and every fall, and he could attend up to 5 to 6 shows on a weekend.
Oh, he would just goodness!
Walk in, say hi, check out, and everything. Make sure the shelves were full of paint, and catch a cab and go to the next place.
Oh my goodness!
And he loved it. He made a big deal out of it, and promoted himself in that way. How many shows he could see, and there was a lot of them going on, and they became a real close sponsor and close friends to this day.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, when AIFD did their 50th thing, by that time Dwight had Penix on the East Coast had purchased Design Master, and Dwight was president of it. And he asked if I would come from Bali to do that program at AIFD in Denver.
That was perfect. So, that was a perfect thing.
Yeah. Well, I had perfect friends to help with that, And I remember getting an email from Hitomi. He says, "Is there anything I can do to help?" And I said, "Yes, I don't know anybody to ask to help. So give me some helpers, would you?"
Yeah, we did.
We organized that.
It was cool.
Incredible people, and
well, that's one thing about AIFDs. I mean, you strike up these friendship, and they're kind of friends for life. And I mean, everybody's interested in helping out with a good program. I mean, to be able to work with a designer that's coming in that's going to bring something exciting to learn, and that's always such a joy for so many of the younger designers to join in and help. No, that was really cool. And that being the 50th anniversary of AIFD right there in Denver. I mean, it was such a perfect partnership with Design Master for sure, based in Colorado.
Well, one great part of that is that I had known Gretchen and had done a couple shows or so way back when, but really had never formed a friendship with Gretchen. And that relationship and friendship was sealed doing that program together with her. So great gal.
Yeah, and
good design.
And I remember you guys, you know, in planning and things sort of start to gel at the end, and how well it did that. I just remember how your content and her content gelled so beautifully and represented the, you know, the color theory, that the heart of Design Master so well. No, that was fun. That was fun to work with. And then having Ali with his fashion. Oh my God, that was like over the top and wonderful.
Well, we had to do that because, you know, Gretchen and I were talking about it, and I said, what do you think? And she said, I think it would be fabulous. And, you know, and I asked Ali, hey, do you want to try this? And he said, sure. I mean,
so you want to maybe tell everybody sort of what Ali's all about? What does he do? You know, what's his career? What that's all about for those people who may not know?
Actually, Ali is very much of a self-trained fashion designer. And we still have in corners and in cupboards here and there piles of magazines. And I was working in China, of course, and go by Hong Kong and to bookstores there. And I would drag every fashion magazine I could find and bring it to him. And he opened up a little store, just a retail outlet up in Ubud. And that lasted for about 4 or 5 years, maybe. And then he opened up a big store, and that's where Charisma came from, on Legium Street, right close to Kuta there. You know, you could walk to Kuta Beach from his store easy in 5 minutes. And that he was a successful business, and he just moved and kept developing it. And Ali's genius today now is still fashion, he's developed a couple of organizations similar to AIFD, fashion designers, and they just this last weekend did a show here in Bali. And as florists, we should be embarrassed to stop and think about this. Is just a local show in Bali. 40 designers, 800 garments, and I think 300 models for, and it's a 3-day function.
Wow.
It makes, and it's all to the public. You have to have a ticket to get there. You have to be invited, but they're not selfish about who gets tickets. And you know, it's just an incredible merchandising and marketing system for their product. And
it's a little bit of what's missing with floristry, isn't it? We do with shows, but we do it for ourselves and not to the consumers, who are really the end users.
Definitely. I mean, I will have to just flash back on Denver. I mean, Gretchen and I did a show there. Program was right after lunch, as I recall. By 3 o'clock in that afternoon, everything was in the dumpster.
Yeah.
Everything.
It's kind of a shame.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
and not one consumer looked at what you did. You know, I think it's a flaw.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame. We're not taking advantage of the showcase that we build to let the consumers know what we are capable of and what we can offer. They don't even know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't a clue what the seating for the attendance show was here in Bali this last weekend. But several hundred, because it's a small venue, and every show was packed in standing room only to watch them. So the public loves to see, the product, and they would love to see flowers just the same as fashion.
Right.
And
Well, I want to just mention that I posted on Instagram one of John's his bouquet and flowers to wear. I did post just last night, just to sort of alert people about today's live show. One of the fashion photo shoot that you and I sort of participated with Ali's fashion, what was quite fabulous back in end of February, I think it was. And a lot of people really loving that particular picture, and how much fun it was to work with Ali's vision and his fashion outdoor shoot. That was fun, wasn't it?
It was. And well, it was great to work together with you again. We hadn't done anything for a long, long time. And, in the past, it would, like every other weekend, it seemed like we were going someplace to shoot for a book or something and whatever. And thought we were going to be able to vote in Oklahoma there for a while. We spent so much time in studio there.
Yeah, that's true.
No, the whole concept of that shoot was really incredible, because we had a whole crew of people that just rallied around it. And just, the models, it was a model from Russia that was there, she and her husband on holiday. And she just volunteered to be, a model for this process, and spent a whole day there, or the night before and the day. The photographer wanted to do a sunrise shot, and the hotel restaurant said, "Oh, well, that's great. We'll just open up early and feed everybody before you go then." And
it was an
unreal experience.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was like a real spirit of collaboration, and everybody wanting to do this fun shoot. And here we were, you and I, like in that little gazebo thing, out of the sun, trying to, work with David Austin roses and all these perishable flowers in that warm location. But it was really, really cool. And I wanted to share that particular one shot because there's going to be an article in the Florist Review magazine. That's a Flora Fashion issue that's going to be coming out in July. That's going to have some pictures from that photo shoot. So what do you think is Ali's kind of concept, Ali's idea of flowers to be used with fashion?
He, going back to the AIFD program that he did, just a mini show there, half a dozen gowns or so. He approached flowers as an accessory, just like you would jewelry, anything like that. And he said that he, of course, is possessive of his product and his talent. He doesn't want his dresses covered with flowers. He wants to use them as accessories and to accent and to make them look even better. And so, and I think it's a good approach, and that's what we approached it with in Denver. As you remember, that there were a lot of flowers used there, but they did, when you looked at them, it was a total picture.
Right.
It wasn't a flower, it wasn't a fashion, it was total, and a great amalgamation. And that's all he likes that.
Yeah. Well, that would make total sense. That would make total sense, that if you want to collaborate with artists in other area, that you respect their product so that you don't outdo them. I think it's all about collaboration and making it, raising it to the next level with a combination appropriately. That makes total sense. It makes it fun to know that that's what you're trying to do too.
Well, I remember both of us talking because, you know, Ollie had the gowns that he had made to be photographed for that. And walk in and it was like, I want this one. I want that one. I want this one. You know, you were saying, you know, we both gravitated to different, you know, looks and things. And that became our source of inspiration specifically was his gowns. And it was a particularly interesting collection that he did because there was almost no beading or accessorizing in that bling thing. And it was a manipulation of the fabrics, and it was a lot of tailoring involved in that. And so it was a different look for him, and he was excited to see what our excitement when we saw it. You know?
Oh, it was really cool. It was very technique oriented, wasn't it? There were a lot of different kinds of techniques, like woven pieces. There were a lot of kind of cording and kind of artistic rendering of, you know, linear over the dress with the cording. And it was just really cool. It excited us so much. And it really, I think, really inspired to the floral, kind of relating to those elements of design.
Well, yes. And it was also a little contrasting there too, because, you know, you were able to get the David Austin roses sponsored, and that's probably the last flower you'd think of in a tropical.
So true, so true.
And we were just plain lucky in that case because they were shipped. They were grown. The roses were grown in a farm in Africa, Kenya.
Kenya, yeah.
And then they were shipped to Jakarta by a Holland shipper, and they were shipped to a wholesale house there. And I had met this lady, went in and talked to her, and then when we decided to do this, I called her and I said, "Can you receive these for us?" Because it's a little tricky getting product into Indonesia. Any country, I think, if you don't know what you're doing and how to go about it, because you're importing their live material there. And so, you know, Felicia just said, "Yeah, sure." And so they were flown into Jakarta, and then they had to be flown to Bali. And
a lot of travel. Those poor
a lot of travel. And we got this message. They said, "How much do we owe you for all this?" And she said, "Let me just be a sponsor."
Yeah, that was really wonderful. I mean, they were all part
great.
of the whole collaboration, I think. You know, it was kind of a wonderful group, you know, the makeup artist, the hairstylist, the photographer, all the assistants, and right to the grower that supplied, the shipper, the receiver, all of that, to sort of celebrate the use of these beautiful flowers. I was so surprised, actually, some of the flower, the David Austin particularly that we used, the wear and tear on them. I mean, they really survived through a heck of a lot, especially on that day of the shoot. There were some things like headpieces that were sitting out in the element warm all day till like 3 o'clock shoot. And they looked terrific. They still looked fabulous. I couldn't believe it. It was fantastic to see, isn't it?
It's a good lesson in putting humidifiers in your store, because the humidity here, of course, is so high.
Yeah, that's it.
That you know, it's not like Colorado with dry air where the moisture is being sucked out. I think the air is feeding moisture into the blossoms.
That is true. That is true. Even though it was warm, but things just held up. I was really, I mean, I was scared, but I was really surprised at the same time that you know, just flowers being glued without water, and that it held up so beautifully. It was really cool. It was a wonderful experience. So look out for that particular issue coming up. That's a July issue. So that's going to be really cool. Some great pictures.
Jump in on you. The old guy at the nursery, when we stopped, we had bought stuff at different nurseries to use in the bouquets. We were driving down by this one, and I thought it was interesting, and Ollie was driving. And he pulled over, and we walked in, and met the guy, and then the guy brought the boss out, and we'd chat a little, and we're not really terribly interested in buying great big plants. We just needed some foliages. And I suspect there was some conversation between Ali and him. But anyway, he pulled these scissors out. He said, "Okay, what do you want?"
Yeah, that was cool.
The two of us wandered through this greenhouse or growing structure, and pointed that he just chopped some and hand it to us and go to the next one. And
talk about fresh cut flowers and foliages.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was
and
cool.
he even bought into it, because I don't remember what we had to pay for that, but it was pennies, 200,000 or 300,000, which is like $4 or $5,
Yeah. No, that was cool. I mean, the whole process of just gathering product was fun. And it really made you realize what you can do with the combination. And you had mentioned just the word just a little while ago about the word contrast, using the David Austin in the tropics, the word contrast, because we had quite a lengthy conversation about how significant that particular principle of design is. That really, that is the word, that is the principle that makes a fabulous composition, right?
Well, and you were a little bit sneaky about that too, because we just been chatting about the world's problems and how to solve them and everything, and just out of the blue, you said, "What do you think's the most important principle or element in design? What do you think? What do you feel?" Well, you've done this before, so I wasn't surprised. But and this is something I have felt for several years, and more so as I studied, because I now have some time to study a little bit more and read and look and stuff at other design. And yeah, it fell out of my mouth, of course, because it was what I have felt was contrast is so important, more so than really any other of the principle, I think. You said, "That's interesting," and you then mentioned 2 or 3 other people you had polled. I think you were running talking to this one and then that one.
A little survey. But it's sort of a good conversation to have with people, because you really do come to that conclusion that without contrast, you really don't have a story. And really, a composition of any kind is about a story. And so I think that's kind of what it comes down to. And it's so funny, for the number of years you and I both have, discussed elements and principles of design till we beat it to death practically, and know it, instinctively, but really coming to a conclusion after so many years that really that is the heart of what a good design must have, is some beautiful story telling the contrast within that design. I thought that was really a cool day when we were talking about it.
Yeah, and then the other people that you had polled and or questioned that had the same opinion, major designers around the world. And I was just glad to see that sitting here in Bali that I could have come to this same conclusion. I probably was, that came from a little bit from the work that I had done for the AIFD program, where I really became enchanted with value. There's hue, value, chroma, all the characteristics of color. And value is really the most important one, I felt. That's nothing more than contrast and in color or
you can
tone.
Reduce it right back down to that word again.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's good.
Yeah. So now that you do have time to be reading and looking and observing what's going on in the world, not all about flowers, but certainly I'm sure you're keeping an eye on flowers too, on the internet, on Facebook and everything. So what do you see from your perspective, from where you are, what the current view on floral trends are?
I should probably have checked out what, as a part in Ollie's group that he has, his association, it has a division which does trend forecasting for the fashion world. And they probably have a catchy phrase. But this look that I think is got to come across today to be successful is it has to have some spontaneity to it.
Mm-hmm.
It has to have a sense of being alive and natural. The manipulated, over manipulated, I will have to say, because I think it ended up being that trend became such. And just a couple of days ago, somebody posted a picture on Facebook, and it ended up being a copy or a picture of an arrangement that had been done at an AIFD testing. And it looked so 80s, 90s.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So structured that like, these poor flowers were like set in concrete.
Uh-huh. They were being posed, right?
Yeah,
didn't have that
good term,
ink of
yes.
naturalness.
Oh, and they asked for critiques on them, and I said it looked old-fashioned. Anyway, this scattered look that, for a better term, I don't know, and that's why Ollie's Association probably has a great term for it, because it's done in a lot in fabrics too.
Mm-hmm.
A daisy here, and an anemone here, an orchid here, and a whatever, just scattered.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of negative space.
Mm-hmm.
And background becomes terribly important, you know.
Interesting.
You know, and you take advantage of the setting that the design is in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that becomes a part of the composition because it's so open.
Mm-hmm.
And the silhouettes, the profiles of the individual blossoms, and dark and light in there. It's
would you say it's a full arrangement, or is it airy?
Airy.
Yeah, so it's moving away from that massive solidness and the solid shapes, a little bit looser, transparent. Is that kind of how you see it?
Even if you're doing something, let's say a column kind of an arrangement, that in the past would have been very, very packed
mm-hmm.
with flowers. You might start with that, loosen it up a little bit, but then there are wayward flowers that are moving out to it, give it some life. It's not this plastered thing.
Yeah, and so formed and shaped and then really getting away from any kind of a monobotanical where it's just solid mass of roses. There's got to be more interesting combinations, right? Something that just sort of happened rather than so calculated. I see that as well.
And there is a pet peeve and that I've seen is, this goes way back, is that we have product which vines and trails and hangs. We have other product which grows upright. Sick and tired of seeing amaryllis hung upside down just because they can pour water in the stem and they last a while. I can't even hardly look at it. It would be like, you know, doing a family picture and having the father hold the kid upside down.
It's unnatural. That's the point. It's unnatural.
Yes, yeah. It looks tortured.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And not. I have to say I can't imagine that the public likes it that much, other than the fact that it's pretty. Mm-hmm. You know.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's good design.
I think there's a novelty at first, But really, as a designing system, it becomes old very quickly because it's almost becomes the expected after a while because you've seen it so many times. And I guess that's sort of the whole idea behind sort of the natural placement is it's as you might see it, that it just happens. I think that's the beauty of it, isn't it? Like that's exactly what you're saying with the word spontaneity. It just has that feel like it was meant to happen like this.
And there is a world of product out there that does trail.
Mm-hmm.
Wisteria.
So why make something straight trail down?
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of a pet peeve. Interesting though, I will have to say this. There's a lady that works in the garment factory here in the office, and she just got married. And Ollie couldn't go to the wedding, so I went. And it was in Medellin. It's Central Java. Beautiful. I thought I'd landed in Colorado because I looked up and here's this mountain range behind me and stuff. It's fabulous. I've never been there. It's a beautiful part of Java. And went into the wedding, and this venue when I arrived at the hotel. It was in the evening. Actually, it was a Buddhist ceremony, but the wedding had been held 2 or 3 days, wedding ceremony before. So they get to wear the wedding gown and all that stuff twice. And then this was just the reception. And walked in, and I would have swear that I had walked into a Pinterest ad. There was a photo op wall at the entrance, which was done in solid roses and other flowers. Walked into the ballroom where the banquet was held, and kind of typical, had a stage up in front. There's some typical things that you see in Indonesian weddings, but they had half a pickup load of hanging crystals from a gazebo and stuff, and it looked just like, so publications have covered the world. So this is really a farming community, agricultural community, rather prosperous one in Java. And you would have thought, don't you look at what they were doing, and doing very well.
Mm-hmm. But what you saw was that it could be anywhere else in the world, that it's homogeneous, it's becoming so much the similar likes.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I found that was interesting. Like, I just came back from Japan, and it was kind of like revisiting my home country. And I'm thinking, I feel like I've lost a little bit of myself, the Japanese in me. And I feel like I need to go back a little bit. And I almost feel like that's what a little bit, that signature, that your own personal who you are and where you come from, sometimes is being lost in today's, the array of images that you can be inspired by. It's good, but at the same time, how you use it. I think you got to take what is good for you, what does illustrate who you are, and not get caught up in starting to do things that looks like everybody else. Don't you think?
Yeah. I mean, I was a little disappointed because it was as beautiful and lovely as it was. I thought, I wonder, I was anticipating what they would do.
Right.
I've been to several weddings, locally here in Bali. And of course, those become a little mixed because of the religious faiths in Bali. We have the majority population here is Hindu in Bali, whereas in Java it'll be Muslim. And in this case, this was a Chinese Indonesian lady. So you had that Buddhist element.
Wow.
And Chinese element too. So, and it was just interesting. The ethnicity, different ethnic groups.
Yeah. Well, you would think that you would get a little bit of ethnicity in there, but because I'm seeing like certain looks all over the world, and I see even in Europe them doing weddings like what's being done in the States. And I'm thinking, oh my God, you know, the boundaries are just being lost, that you can't identify certain nationality or certain cultures by the flower use anymore. It's becoming so much of the same. So what?
Well, you remember up there at the photo shoot when up at Badoogle when we were up there, it was obviously a venue or a location where brides and grooms and the photographer went to do some photographing.
That's right.
And the typical Hindu look with the elaborate headpieces, the beautiful, beautiful garments, and the guys almost costumed.
Yeah, that's right.
Traditional, and that is kind of what I thought we were going to see, you know, but a different twist to it.
Yeah.
But that is one thing that makes Bali too, you know, is the Hindu faith here, which permeates everything.
Lots of ceremonies, lots of holidays, right?
You better believe it.
But there's a lot of use of flowers. That's one thing that I've noticed is, you know, whether it's with the offerings or what, but they're very much in tune with flowers and nature.
Yeah, and the lavish, really, use of flowers. I mean, when we went out in the market, big bags, like gunny sack bags, only they're plastic now, filled with blossoms of all colors that they use in the offerings. And even you get in a taxi and there's an offering, an arrangement of flowers on the dash in the taxis.
Yeah, that's true. And I think you're right about the moisture, the humidity, because those bags of like the balsam blossoms, which is sort of a little bit like impatiens blossoms that we saw, and it's just a whole bag, like a gunny sack full of them. And it sits like this for a couple days in the car traveling up to Badoogle, and then we use it, and they're still as fresh as anything. I can't believe it. It holds up so beautifully.
Yeah, and the incredible hair pieces that they use here, the traditional.
Oh yeah, those were cool. The mechanics of it is intriguing, isn't it?
Yeah, really. But that's a part of Bali, is that look and the ceremonies and all of that you get involved with. If they have a ceremony, as for example a cremation, they will have the women will be carrying a urn on their head, stacked maybe 36 inches high with fresh fruit. Shove a banana stem in there and then use satay sticks and just cover it with fruit. And these women are walking down the street with these, heading to the cremation. And it's a part of Bali.
Yeah,
you know,
those are really kind of cool tradition to see.
Yeah.
That's sort of the flavor, definitely, of that island. It's wonderful. I love that. So
we have some questions.
Okay, let's go for it.
Okay. Diana Fox on YouTube asks, "Hi Hitomi and John, I'll be competing in my first student competition at Symposium this year and would love any advice about how to calm my nerves."
Come on, John, you've been there. I've been there.
I'll go back to Mrs. Richard. You decide ahead of time, make a plan, make step by step by step, and keep that there so that you don't go falling and floundering and becoming disjointed. I've seen that so many times in competitions and that kind of thing, that people all of a sudden become like that. They get really kind of spastic. And if you're organized and you know what you're going to do, and even though you may not know the flowers you're going to have ahead of time, you know what you're going to do. You're going to make those flowers do what you plan for them to do, and with a little bit of spontaneity as far as taking advantage of the blossoms. But if you just say, "Oh, I'll just wait until I get there and see what happens," you'll be doing it again next year.
I so agree with you
Again,
on that one. Yeah.
you have to have a plan, have a roadmap.
Go ahead.
And interesting, and I do not remember who this was. I don't think it was Gregor, and it could be Odd Van Neufeld, but it was years ago when all of a sudden America had, or the Americas had, lots of European designers coming in. And I heard a program, and a guy was talking, and I apologize, I can't tell you exactly who it was, but he said, if you don't want to design like the captain of a ship without a compass.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Said you need a compass to know where you're going. And I thought I think I've repeated that at every program I've ever done since then. So I should know the guy's name, but I don't.
Well, I truly believe in having a plan and sticking with a plan, because it's so easy to get distracted. You get distracted seeing other people design. You get distracted with product. You get distracted with, you get enamored with something you've never ever worked with before. I mean, it's always good to go with what you do best, and you know what that is, right? That's a tried and proven. And I think that's really the key, is because if you keep focused on that, you can't but fail. I mean, you can't. You can't. I mean, you'll be successful if you do what you do best.
And it's not a time to experiment.
No, absolutely not.
And I've seen too many people try that. Oh, I saw that. I want to try to do it. Well, why didn't you do it at home before?
Never do a new idea for the first time at a competition. Yeah, true.
I wish you a lot of luck. I really do, because there is a lot of luck involved, but it's being organized and keep yourself calm, and just don't build yourself a little box around you, and you can look and see what everybody else is doing. You can also be social afterwards. Just, you're there for a purpose, and then just drop those walls around you.
Good idea.
Do it.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
So, yeah. Wish you much luck, though.
Can't wait to see it. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, we have a question from Kathy Cunningham on Facebook. She says, I'm 61 years old and finding retail to be a little more than I can physically handle. Any suggestions on other avenues to pursue at this stage of life? I want to continue to be a part of floral design.
That's a good question. So where are you, John? Oh, there you are. I'm looking on the screen. Well, I mean, you went through a journey from retail and into other things, product development and such. Was that a good journey for you? Did that work out for you?
Well, yeah. I mean, after we got rid of the flower shop, and I just did work for Design Master and shows. There were that many shows to be done at that time. And you could make a good living, and I wasn't the only designer that was basically living off the show business. You couldn't do it now because there's no shows. But I think maybe you just need to alter your personality a little bit and not be quite so available.
That's a good one.
Set your restrictions. Okay, I can work 4 days a week. And Mother's Day week, I'll work 7. But whatever, if you want to work in a store and do it. If you own your own business, there's no getting out of it. You just have to stick it out. And that's probably one reason why Judy and I got out of it. It was too confining after 5 years, whatever we had the store. And then I just did shows, and then I got the opportunity to go to China and do product development. and I loved it. It was a whole different type of designing, and I'd never really been a fan of artificial flowers, but I thought I'll try, and I found I enjoyed it. And there is in that case, there is a real reward in making something, and you design a Christmas wreath, and all of a sudden, Hobby Lobby or some store buys 100,000 pieces. So something you made is going to 100,000 homes for the people to view. That's kind of neat. If you stop and say that, whoa. After working in a flower shop in a little town, you know, where maybe 5 people saw that in the design that you made, it's a really treat to know that people are seeing your work and being influenced by it and enjoy it. So
that's a possibility, definitely.
Yeah, but the product development is great if you can get into it. If you're like it, you have to like it, and it's hard work too. You're working in a Chinese factory, and you're away from home a lot. So
now I have a suggestion, and I think my suggestion is kind of pare down the retail down to some specialties, so that you're not trying to do everything. Because I think that's the biggest problem with retail, is you're trying to please everybody. And it's really difficult to please everybody, you know, from a $10 customer to a $500 customer to a $1,000 customer, to please everybody, and doing all those pieces makes it difficult to really focus on where maybe your best business might be. And whether it's wedding, or even if it's specifically certain kind of wedding, to narrow it down to area that you're good at and you charge a lot, so that you narrow it down so you do less but you make more. I think that's a good plan also. I think that's definitely possible. I think there's also people who specialize in sympathy work, because in certain areas sympathy work is pretty big, so that you don't have to do weddings if you do have a lot of sympathy work, so that you become more specialized. And then in specialization, you can start to charge more because you're so darn good at it. So I think that's also an option. So think about it, Kathy.
good luck.
Okay, so are there any other questions, Colin?
I think that's it for now. We're closing in on an hour now too.
Yeah, so I'm gonna ask John for a last question to end this, because this has been fun. We've been talking about a lot of things that we've done, and a lot of things that you've certainly accomplished a lot, and a lot of good advice from you. But the last advice, any words of wisdom for starting florists today, people that are starting up today with what is going on around us? What is your advice?
I'm probably not the best person to ask that.
Well, but you,
because I've been removed from it for a long time. But I do know this: if you don't love it, you better find out what you do love and get into that, because anything that you do in life, there's a lot of work involved in it. I don't care what profession it is. I mean, I saw Ollie setting up, they just opened up a new store, a pop-up store for this thing. And he worked till 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 days in a row. You better love what you're doing. And because you're going to work hard at it, or you're not going to be successful. I don't think anybody that's successful does not work hard.
No, that's so true. You got to love it. There's got to be a passion for it.
Yeah. And also, when all of a sudden it's not fun, start looking for something to make it fun, to change. You know, I know I had a young girl that worked for me in high school. She went on and she worked in stores in San Francisco and the East Coast, and she came back to Colorado, and she said it ceased. This flower shop thing ceased being fun for her, and she went into an event angle and she started pushing that and developing that. And she said, I love it. She said, you've got a fewer customers. You can really learn and get to know these people that you're working with. And so you have to be honest with yourself that, hey, I don't like this retail business with all these people coming in every day. Well, do what she did.
Yeah, exactly.
Pare it down and do functions. Not necessarily weddings. I think she did a lot of more convention type of work and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's a time of specialization. And I think if you're going into it fresh, starting today, I think it's good to know what that specialty might be. I think that's where there's still a good future in this business, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, because people want flowers, they love them, the public loves them, and they're always going to use them. And you know, it's just I think a better way of going today.
Yeah.
And I mean, I saw that at Robbins when we had it. We became a little specialized too. In our case, it was small weddings.
Yeah, you guys did good weddings.
That weddings were small then.
Yeah, you guys did good weddings.
Huh?
Absolutely.
We did a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were weekends, not frequently and not every weekend, but I think we could easily have handled 20 weddings on a weekend.
Oh my God.
But the weddings are not weren't what they are now.
Yeah, that's true.
You know,
that's true. That's true.
Little reception, little, ceremony and the personal flowers.
Yeah.
So it was easy.
Yeah. Well, thank you, John. This is fun. I can't believe still that we're talking all the way across on the other side of the planet here. And but it's fun. It's great that we can do this.
That's the best part of when you visited here, is we sat out in the back back of the house in the backyard there and listen to the fountain and chatter.
Yeah, it's cool.
And all y'all wander through. Are you guys still here?
Yeah, sharing some good times. Anyway, thank you, John.
You.
And
thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah,
thank you, Colin.
Cool. Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.